Hello and welcome everybody. This is Cujo Sound, WhiteNoiseTrash, and I'm Bjørn Jacobsen. And right now we have gone through some of the Unity features that can sort of help you out with some of the audio stuff. We are going to now create a whole new level from scratch. Well, not the level itself, but all the sound in it. By that, we're going to use everything that I have talked about in all the previous videos so you can see how this works. We're going to be creating prefabs and we're going to create a really nice ambient soundscapes for a level. So what we're going to do to begin with is that we're going to go to the asset store, and in the asset store I have found a couple of things. This here is the UI models. It's I don't know the guy who made this, and I don't even know the game, but it's free to download in the asset store, so that's what I've done. And I'm going to go down here, click import. Once you do that, it'll pop up with a long list of stuff that you can import from this. I just grabbed it all. And what I'm going to do is that if I open a scene, this scene here, inside the UI models folder, you will see that there is a demo scene. You can load this demo scene, and here you go. Now we have a scene here. You have a big level with stuff and whatever. If we press play, there is going to be nothing happening. So what we're going to do is that we are going to add in here under assets. We're going to go down right now. Instead of using the third person controller, we're going to use the first person controller, because if you load the third person controller, he for some reason thinks he's falling all the time, so it doesn't work. We're just going to go into first person controller and prefabs and just drag the FPS controller onto the level like this. Now this means that there is a first person character, there is a controller, and a couple of things here. So when you press play, it will work. And you can look around with your mouse and you can move around with your keys. You can even run and so on. It does have already some sound clips for footsteps and jumping and landing and so on. We're going to leave those there because that's going to fit nicely into it. Later, we are going to create our own, but right now we're just going to use the ones that are there. So what was it that we wanted about this level? We want a soundscape to be functional in this. I'm just going to find a bunch of files that we can use as a soundscape, and we're going to be putting them in, and we're going to create a mixer and everything for it. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we are going over here into assets. We're going to be creating a folder. We create a folder and we just call it audio files. We already have two files here from the previous videos. We're just going to drag those into the audio files folder. So now they're there. I have a massive folder over here full of stuff that I recorded at a laboratory that I went to a couple of years back. My mom's office. I'm just gonna drag a couple of these in so that we can just listen to these and we can use those as a nice mix. And we're gonna go a little further with the mixer, change a little bit of effects on things. And we're just gonna find here, there's a couple of noises and hums of noise room tone laboratory. That's the one that we already have. Mixing machine low hum. And here. Ventilation hood. Stinkscape, which is I don't know what you would call it in English, but it's for fumes. You do chemistry in it. I don't know squat about chemistry really. Yeah, let's just keep these and we'll work with these. Once we click these, I have made this window here bigger so that we can see what's going on, and you can tell here. That's one noise. The other one here is Actually, this one can't be used because it's not already a loop. So we're going to delete this one. Inside closet, laboratory noise, refrigerator, and we have it's a mixing machine that's running. Even though there is some noise in the background, we can still use this one. So now we have these 6 files. We're going to drag these in. Over here is our previously created mixer. We're going to delete this one because we're going to create a new one so that we can kind of start from scratch. And what I want to do is that over here in my project, we have the assets that we made before. We are going to create some new ones. So first, I want to go into my audio mixer and make a new audio mixer. And we're going to call it, just like before, we're going to call it Ambience Mixer. And we are going to have, for this case, we're just going to have like one massive soundscape playing. So we're going to use all the sounds that we have, create a bunch of 2D sounds in the middle of everything. So we're just going to show how we can do a prefab to mix between all these all the time. So in here, we are going to create one empty object. We are going to call it sound underscore ambience audio sources. Here we go. It's placed right there. It doesn't matter where it is. And we can then, in our assets folder here, drag and drop all these there. No, we can't, and we shouldn't. Underneath this one, as a child of these, we're going to remove this audio source here because this is kind of like our game object that's going to contain all our audio sources. So there we go. We now have a bunch of these sounds here. We're going to drag and drop them into our sound audio sources so that they are all here. Good. And we are going to use all these. They are all going to play on awake and be looping. So we're just going to set that. So once we start our level now, we're going to hear a lot of noise. So let's try it. It's kind of noisy, which is why we're going to need to control this. So each of these, they don't have a fader assigned in the mixer. So we're going to go over to the mixer, create a group, and we're going to make new groups for each of these. We can also click here and say, I want here. There's none. So you can see there is none. There's only the master. We are going to create one here, and we're going to call it there. We're going to call it fume howling. Good. And that means that we're going to go to our sound here and say this is going to come out of fume howling. And inside the ventilation closet, whoop, don't open that. It should just open over here. So inside closet, so we're going to need a new one here that's going to be called inside closet. And the inside closet noise goes there. Laboratory noise room tone, it needs a new one as well. Laboratory room. Top of the refrigerator, so we're going to just make one here called fridge. Top of the refrigerator goes to there. And we're going to be creating here, we have low hum. And we have here the last one called the laboratory room. We have one named that. So we're going to call this, we'll just call it room tone. All right. So this one here goes to the room tone. So now that when we press play, we're going to see over here in the mixer that all of these have a file playing, and we can alter these as we go. There we are. No noises are playing. So let's sort of like find a mix that we are going to use. Now, if we press play, there we are. We can say here, if we click our first person controller, you can see the noises that are going to be played from this. And none of these are actually playing out of anything. So let's make this here come out of the master. And it's not very loud. So we're going to crank up the volume of the level so that we can make sure that everything is audible and that everything in here is very low. So this here is like our main snapshot. The footsteps are very low, but we're going to go into the FPS controller and look at this. And it actually says here that this is a 3D sound. We're just going to create this, the FPS controller, make it everything into 2D, and then we can control the volume. So actually, we want a new mixer here called character sounds. And we have a master here. I don't really want to use the master whenever, so we're just gonna go here and say footsteps. Now, on our FPS controller, we're gonna send all noises to character sounds footsteps. So whenever we are moving about now, you will see the footsteps come out of this fader here. And it's really loud. So we're going to go into edit and play mode and turn it down. Probably about like that. Yeah. So now we're going to make a small mix of these files. We're going to be creating the very first start mix of our ambience mixer. So we're going to be making a snapshot here. We already have a snapshot, so we're going to rename this one and call it Inishi. Now we're going to call it main area because that's where we're going to start. It's not an initial one. It will be the initial one, but we're going to use it as our main area. So let's start the game, try and mix these so that it fits well with everything we have for a kind of main area type of sound, and we're going to be changing this as we go on the fly. Good. So this is kind of fitting. Yeah, this is a nice main area room tone. So let's get to it. And we want to create a prefab which can alter between one mix and another mix. So we're going to be creating an empty object here, and we are not going to have it as a child of that. We're going to drag it out here, and we're going to call this the audio gate. Audio gate. And under it, we need a script that can control if we have entered specific colliders. With it, we're going to create a game object like this. Just one. We're going to call it audio collider gate 1. And on it, we're going to add a box collider like this. Here we are. I'm going to change the size of the collider a little bit so that it's just like this, about, let's say, scale, if it's 0.5 meters, yeah, and it's going to be about, let's say, 2 meters high, 2 meters wide. So now we have a collider like this. And on here, we are going to say add component script. And we're going to the audio gate controller. Here we are. Good. Edit script. Here we are. Now, what we want is, we know that there is a collider, so it's not going to do anything on start and update. We're going to say void on trigger enter collider other, because it knows that there is a collider, and it will, oh, and we need to use the plugin here, Unity engine.audio. So here we are going to say audio mixer snapshot, and we also need to define that we have a public audio mixer snapshot here, and we are going to call it to snapshot, like that. Audio. So down here we should call the other ones, we're going to call it transition to snapshot dot transition to, and we need time here, so we're going to create a public float and call it transition time. And in here, we're going to use transition time to define it. So right now, we have a collider here, which we can add our snapshot to, transition to snapshot, and we can tell it how quickly it should do so. Let's duplicate this one. And call it gate number 2. And gate number 2, we are going to move slightly like this, just so that they barely cross each other. Like this. So now we theoretically already have a gate that we can control. So let's save this, save, and we're going to move the audio gate down here to our asset. So now we have an audio gate prefab. Let's delete it here and then find some spot in the game. Let's say when you walk into this area here, yes. I'm going to be drag and drop our audio gate snapshot. Snapshot that we just made, like this. We are going to move it so that it is placed here on the level. Make it bigger like this, so that we make sure that it covers the entire entrance. So now we have a gate here, and we know that collider gate 1 is the one on the outside and collider gate 2 is on the inside. So once we get inside, let's say over here in the mixer, we have not a snapshot for the main area because that's the one that we're going to be using for the other one. Let's call it here darker area. This is what we're going to be using as a darker area. So darker area, once you get to through collider 2, we are going into the darker area. Here we are. And once you get into collider 1, we want to go back into the main area. And we want transition when we're going back into the main area to be slower. So let's say 4 seconds. And when we go into the dark area, we want it to be just 2 seconds. And if we take our FPS controller, and we are going to move it over here. Let's press play. So once we enter this area here, it should change to the snapshot darker area. Wait, we have forgotten that our collider here needs to be a trigger and not an actual collider. Here we are. So here in like this, so we go into edit mode and we want this area to be kind of darker. We are in darker area. So this is now the darker area, the darker area snapshot. So now when we're going to press play, we're going to start in main area and we're going to move into the dark area, and you will hear the audible change. So this is main area. So we're now in dark area. Let's leave this area here. So that's one way to make one area, one prefab that we have used to create an audio gate. Let's see the power of audio gating and prefabs here. So we have audio gate here. We're just going to rename this one and we're going to call it to dark area. That's one thing, so that we don't get confused when we have 100 of these. So over here, there is a small area that you can walk behind, behind this box here, and as well walk along this ledge. So we are going to create an area for that. What should we call that? We can call this the ledge area. Let's call it that. Let's make a snapshot called ledge area. Yeah. And we're going to, over here in our project view, just take the same audio gate and drag and drop it into here. Good. Here we are. We are going to turn it and say, you can also edit the numbers up here. You don't have to manually turn it. Say that it's going to be placed going to be placed here. We can turn it slightly so that it goes like this. Move it a little bit, change the size of it. So now it covers both in this area and through this gate over here. It's not an optimal solution, but it'll get the job done. So audio gate here, let's call it audio gate to ledge. The thing is that when you drag and drop this prefab, it will own the scripts, it'll own the colliders, it will own everything that you want that was already in the prefab. So if you've made a system that works, and then you can just drag and drop it, and it will always be the same. And if you want to change something to it, instead of changing it up here, you can, and then you can apply it to the prefab by clicking the apply button here. But you can also go down into the prefab here, do your editing, and then apply. And then it will affect all the instances of the prefab that you have around the level. So here we have two ledge, and this here is collider 1, which is the one that is going to the area, and collider 2 is going out of the area. So let's say here collider 2 should go to main area, and collider 1 should go to ledge area. And the ledge area, we want to go to that through 4 seconds, and the other one back to the main area as well, 4 seconds. So let's try and go into this area here and create a mix that'll sound a little bit more like it's a ledge. We don't have a windy sound, so we can't really do it. But you get the idea. So we can sort of like set up the entire level. We have to be looking at the mixer. To get out of play mode like this, you can just press escape, then you can control the mouse again. So now we're in the ledge area. Let's try and hit escape, edit in play mode, find a way. You don't want that one. Just a little more of this noise, maybe. Like this. Yeah, this could be a nice mix. So this is our ledge area mix. You get the idea. You can just add your own material. It doesn't matter. So now we're going back into... No, we're apparently not going back into main area, but that's because we are still in editing play mode, and we don't want that. So, ledge area. When we leave the area, you can also see that if we click here, press escape, and select the collider there, you will be able to see it. So we can run through the gate as well here. If we added some sort of wind to this area, we definitely would have used other sounds if we were actually making this game. Then could have done that. Let's say here on this ledge, if you walk onto this ledge, we want a different mix. Only if you go into that area there. So we're going to go into our project, add the audio gate here. There you go. Going to move it a little bit here. So we're going to make it smaller so that it doesn't go too much into the building. We don't need it in the building. So here we are. And we're going to call it to extreme ledge. Collider 1 goes into the area. Collider 2 goes out of the area. So we want Collider 1 to go into a new snapshot that we're going to make. And we're going to call it extreme area, extreme ledge. Yeah, let's do that. And Collider 2, which is going back into the ledge area, we're then going to say Collider 2, and we want it to go to click, and we want to go to ledge area. And Collider 1, we want that one to go to extreme ledge. You get the idea. And we want it maybe 2 seconds into it and maybe a 4-second out of it. So once we get into this area here, we can sort of make a, let's say, a darker mix, even darker mix. So as you can see, once we get into this area here, it's going to become ledge area. And once we go into there, it's going to become extreme ledge. Like this. So once we leave this area again here, it's going to go back into ledge area. Now it's going to become main area again. So by using the same prefab, by using just drag and drop of that one, make a system that can easily change from one thing to the other. You don't have to do it over and over and over again every time you do a new area. You can just drag and drop the same prefab and it will work. And there are, if you're a better coder than me, you can do it in thousands of different ways. You can have 2 colliders on the same object. You don't even need 2 collider gates. You can just check from which end you're coming into it. It's fascinating. And that's how you run on a level and set up basic snapshot mixing by using a collider and by having a prefab that we have also made in some of the previous videos. And this is a really easy way if you don't have a too big game. It's a really easy way to just mix between certain sounds. Just have maybe a bunch of drones playing, and instead of changing the drone from room to room, you can mix between them so that the universe stays believable and stays the same. Of course, it can be done way more elegantly than we just did it because we, of course, haven't had time to really tweak it. But it proves the point still. You can run into these areas and it will work. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.